Well, Monica Harding is the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for international development. Monica Harding, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So, what's your stance on this? We know the Lib Dems are backing the increase in defence spending, so presumably you're all right with this.
We're good with the defence spend, very much behind that. We called for that last Friday, but we recommended that it should be paid through a different means. So it was a surprise to all of us, this cut in aid, and we think strategically it's an error by the government.
So your solution is what?
So we recommended at that point an increase in the digital service taxes of the big tech companies from 2% that it currently is to 10%. We've also pushed the idea of a European rearmament bank, and that's something that our leader Ed Davey talked about in Prime Minister's question time.
What is that? I mean, I confess I'm just not sure I know what that means.
Well, look, this was something that was floated back in January by one of the former defence chiefs, Nick Carter, and also a Times journalist. It's basically been modelled on a European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So initial financing provided by governments, allowing them to raise more private capital for investment into military hardware. So it's a way of financing it quickly with a bank guarantee behind it and with, national guarantees behind it. So it's an effective mechanism where Europe can come together in order to finance this increase in military spend, which is needed because of the unpredictability of the US administration, which has turned basically everything on its head overnight almost.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got people like Claire Short speaking out, once the International Development Secretary. Diane Abbott, who's the mother of the House, made a passionate contribution to PMQs today. In a way, I guess you could make a case for those two women being, if you like, the conscience of the old school Labour Party. They are saying, well, for what many people would believe to be the truth. If you vote Labour, you do so hoping that things will be different and that they will make the sorts of decisions that a Tory government wouldn't make. But here we are.
Yeah, and I made that point absolutely to the Prime Minister yesterday when he made his statement that I never thought that a Labour government would make this cut. And what a pitiful inheritance it is from 1997 when you had a Labour government that were essentially promising to make poverty history. And I don't think that's old style Labour. I think there are many on the Labour backbenches that feel very uncomfortable with this decision. And there are many Labour voters, I've spoken to constituents who feel very, very uncomfortable with this cut. And again, as you say, it's not something that anybody would have thought the Labour government would have done.
No, I mean, there's an awful lot of focus in some of the media on the odder end of international development, the kind of programmes, I'm being facetious here, but, Domino's clubs in such and such a place for people who are left-handed, that kind of thing. And everybody says, well, this is ridiculous, it's a waste of money. But tell us about the important stuff that international development money from this country does. Where does it go to?
Well, look, I mean, and you're right, in everything that, there's always going to be anomalies here, but overwhelmingly, the British have led on international development and humanitarian aid, on the generosity also of the British public, who have always stepped up, in appeals, etc. And the government has matched that. And, we have been there at humanitarian disasters. We have been there to prevent conflicts through the world. We have inoculated, with the help of Gavi, a billion children have been inoculated from diseases that has probably saved 18 million lives. And, I've been there myself to some of these aid projects. I was there in Kenya last year, and I was at a clinic that was set up by UK Aid, which only set up every 2 weeks. And one little boy had come with his mother, is a boy of 5, and she was very worried about it. He was given some food right then and weighed. He wouldn't have lasted another 2 weeks had it not been for that clinic. So you see that at first hand. But I want to make another point. This is not just a moral argument. This is a strategic argument as well, because a lot of the work we do in development is about prevention. So prevention of conflict, for example, is cheaper than going to war, and it secures our borders and it secures our stability. So, for example, the war in Sudan at the moment is one of the biggest humanitarian crises 25 million people there on the edge of famine. Famine is in some areas at the moment. And there are more Sudanese coming over in boats at the moment than there ever have been. So it protects our borders to put money in here. And we are also a leader in international development for years. And that creates a huge influence in the global south, for example. And that has an impact on trade and our growth. And when we vacate, and this is really important because US aid has been gutted by the Trump administration in weeks. And in that time, China has moved in. And when the BBC World Service were forced to reduce their broadcast in Lebanon and the occupied territories, those same frequencies were taken over by Sputnik, which is the Russian state arms radio. So where we depart, other actors, sometimes rogue actors, move in. So it's not just the moral argument of this, it's a strategic one too.
I absolutely take your point. What about tomorrow and the Donald Trump-Keir Starmer meeting? Do you actually think that this increase in defence spending and the cut in the international development budget is a sop to Trump?
Well, the speed of it, I think you have to say, has been done in response to Trump. And what we would say as Liberal Democrats is that Trump is unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do next, and anything you put in place may not change that. So what we have always said is that we need that closer relationship with Europe. And it is why we called for the increase in defence spending, on Friday, that we need to have closer ties with our European neighbours, and we need to provide resilience independent of the US because they are not the predictable ally that we once had.
Well, no, and perhaps we should never have assumed that they always would be. So could there be, and would the Liberal Democrats back a European army?
Well, look, I think we're at stages now where we want to create that closer relationship. We talk about that in many different ways, in trade. We've talked about joining a customs union in order to increase growth, which seems to be the government's number one mission. So we need that closer relationship with Europe, and we need to see what it looks like. We've talked about this rearmament bank, which is a way of strengthening our troops right now, and making closer relationships with them is absolutely where Lib Dem policy is.
Right. Have you seen the video that Donald Trump, the AI-generated Trump Gaza video that the president has shared on Truth Social?
So I haven't actually watched it. I've seen it being passed around. I think there was some confusion about whether it was real or not. And I think that shows you the status that we're in at the moment, disinformation, what is real and what is not real. And that's a massive danger. And also goes back to why we need to put money into development to stop, that disinformation. But no, not yet. I haven't seen it.
No, but your reaction is illustrative of just, let's be honest, we're just living in I'm 60. I've just never known life to be odder or more challenging than it is right now. Do you wake up with palpitations every morning?
Well, absolutely. I check my phone to see what we have to respond to today. But you make a very serious point. I have 4 children. It's one of the reasons I went into politics in the first place. And I thought the disruption of the last 5 years was something, but this is something completely different. And it's not something we're used to. So I think we have to be nimble, we have to be agile, and how we now react to what we're seeing in the world in a very, very different government, very different alignment. How America aligned with North Korea and Russia in a UN resolution the other day tells you everything you need to know about this brave new world. And we need politicians to step up to the plate on that.
Can I ask you just a quick question about the future, Monica Harding? Do you think that there will be a time when a government of whatever flavour will raise the international development and aid budget again?
I do, and it's our job actually to point out the strategic importance of this. Remember, there are 3 Ds, to all our foreign relations. You have diplomacy, you have defence and development, and all of them have to work in concert with each other. And this is why you have some defence chiefs coming out and saying it's a mistake to stop development because it prevents conflict in the first place. So we need to make that argument. The Liberal Democrats, when they were in coalition, brought in the 0.7% target. We got to 0.7%. And really importantly, George Osborne, in the face of austerity, kept that development spend. So it's been done before. The reason it's a percentage is because it's a sliding scale. When our economy is not doing so well, of course it goes down. So yes, we need to make the case. We need to be back there. The government has said they want to return to 0.7%. It's up to parties like the Liberal Democrats to make that case from where we're sitting, and there's enough of us to do that.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Appreciate it. Monica Harding, who's the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for international development. Your thoughts on that? Welcome, of course.